Commander Nyria Voss stood at the viewport of the Xanthari flagship Eternal Light, her iridescent scales reflecting the distant starlight. The massive vessel led a fleet of 42 ships carrying the last remnants of her civilization, 300,000 souls who had fled their dying world 8 months ago. Commander First Officer Dexron's voice carried a tremor she had never heard before. The antimatter containment readings. She turned, 4 heart chambers constricting at his expression. The holographic displays surrounding the bridge crew pulsed with amber warnings, a color that had become far too familiar in recent weeks. Show me. The central display expanded, revealing a cascade of failing containment fields across the fleet. The sophisticated magnetic bottles that held their antimatter fuel supplies were degrading faster than their most pessimistic projections. How long? Narya asked, her outer membrane nictitating rapidly, a sign of stress she couldn't quite suppress. 19 days, Commander, 22 at most if we power down all non-essential systems. Dexron's tendrils writhed in agitation, and that's assuming the degradation rate remains constant if it accelerates. She didn't need him to finish. If the containment fields failed completely, the resulting matter-antimatter annihilation would vaporize the entire fleet in seconds. They had known the containment systems were failing when they fled their homeworld, but the temporal anomaly they'd encountered in the Cygnus arm had accelerated the decay exponentially. Status of the Horizon Project, she asked, referring to their long-range search for a suitable new homeworld. Chief Science Officer Murilax approached, her usually pristine white scales dulled with exhaustion. We've detected 73 star systems with potentially habitable worlds within range, but none have the industrial capacity we'd need to rebuild our containment systems. However, Murilax continued, mandibles clicking in what Nyria recognized as barely contained excitement, we're detecting artificial signals from a system approximately 4 days away at current speed. Electromagnetic emissions, artificial satellites, and what appear to be early quantum communication attempts. Nyria's tendrils coiled tightly, a spacefaring civilization. Early stages, but yes. They've achieved lunar colonization and have small outposts throughout their system. Their technology appears to be roughly 2 centuries behind our pre-Exodus levels. Show me. The holographic display shifted to show a blue-white planet third from its sun. Countless satellites orbited it, along with what appeared to be primitive space stations. Small ships moved between the planet and its single moon, where dome-like structures dotted the gray surface. The natives call it Earth, Murilax explained. We've been intercepting and decoding their transmissions. They're interesting, highly diverse culturally, technologically advancing at a remarkable rate and, she hesitated. And they appear to value cooperation and mutual aid, at least in space. We've detected numerous instances of their vessels diverting from planned courses to assist others in distress, even at significant cost to themselves. Nyria absorbed this. In their long journey, they had encountered 3 other spacefaring species. The Krell had demanded impossible tribute for safe passage. The Vorkath had opened fire without communication. The Melosians had simply ignored their distress calls. What do we know of their biologies? Bilateral symmetry, endoskeletal oxygen breathers. Murilax brought up comparative physiological diagrams. No scales or natural armor, but remarkably adaptable. They can survive in a surprisingly wide range of temperatures and pressures. Their atmosphere is compatible with ours, though slightly higher in nitrogen. Nyria studied the strange, soft-skinned creatures on the display. They looked so vulnerable, yet they had achieved space travel and were spreading through their system with remarkable speed. Recommendations, she asked, looking at her senior staff. We should avoid contact, Security Chief Vexter said immediately. Our experiences with other species will doom us if we cling to them, Dexron interrupted. Commander, we have 300,000 people aboard these ships. Without help, the containment fields will fail. We can die clinging to our fears, or we can take a chance. Nyria felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. She thought of the children in the fleet's educational pods, many of whom had never known a real sky over their heads. She thought of the elders in cryosleep, preserved in the hope of seeing their people flourish again. Murilax, continue monitoring their transmissions. Learn everything you can about their protocols and social structures. Dexron, begin drafting first contact scenarios. Vexter, prepare the scout ship Swiftseeker for launch. She turned back to the viewport. watching the distant star that harbored their possible salvation grow steadily larger. And alert Medical Director Peltara, if we're going to meet these humans, we need to understand their biology, not just for safety but for compatibility if they do agree to help us. She let the thought hang unfinished. As her crew moved to comply, Naria touched the ceremonial band around her upper tendril, a symbol of her commitment to her people's survival. The metal was warm, as always, containing a tiny fragment of their homeworld's crust. "One more chance," she whispered in the ancient prayer tongue. "Great flows of time and space, grant us one more chance." Behind her, the bridge crew worked with renewed purpose. In 19 days, they would either find salvation among the stars or join them in eternal silence. The blue-white planet grew larger in their forward sensors, a beacon of hope in the endless void. Naria began recording in her personal log, Day 248 of the Exodus. "We approach a civilization called humanity. They are either our last hope or our final disappointment. Tomorrow we send the Swift Seeker. Tomorrow we learn if the universe has mercy for refugees after all." Captain Juniper Hayes sat in her command chair aboard the EDF Stargazer, Earth's most advanced first contact vessel, watching as her crew tracked the unknown object approaching the solar system. The ship's quantum sensors painted a detailed picture of their visitor, a sleek vessel about twice the size of the Stargazer, using some form of propulsion their instruments couldn't quite identify. "Analysis?" she asked, turning to her science officer. Dr. Marcus Way looked up from his station, dark eyes bright with excitement. "Definitely artificial, Captain. The energy signature suggests incredibly advanced technology, but," he frowned, "there are fluctuations in their power grid that don't seem intentional." "Hostile capabilities." Lieutenant Kira Patel at Tactical shook her head, her crisp uniform reflecting the blue glow of her console. "If they have weapons, they're powered down, but they're defensive systems," she whistled softly. "Those shields make ours look like tissue paper." "Coming into visual range," announced Navigator Thomas O'Reilly, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The main viewscreen activated, revealing their first clear look at the alien vessel. Its hull was a strange, iridescent material that seemed to shift colors as they watched, covered in intricate patterns that might have been aesthetic or functional. No obvious weapons were visible, but something about its design spoke of incredible technological sophistication. "They're scanning us," Kira reported, very polite about it, low-power, non-invasive sweeps. Juniper nodded, appreciating the courtesy. "Dr. Way, are you picking up any transmissions?" "Nothing yet, but wait." He leaned forward, adjusting something on his console. "They're broadcasting. It's a mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, then basic geometric principles." "The universal language," Juniper smiled. "Send our standard response sequence. Let's see if we can establish a baseline for communication." Over the next hour, the two ships engaged in an increasingly complex exchange of mathematical and scientific concepts. The alien vessel maintained a respectful distance, making no aggressive moves. Finally, Dr. Way announced what they'd been waiting for. "Captain, I think we have enough for basic translation. They're requesting direct communication." "Put it through." The viewscreen shifted, and Juniper found herself face to face with an alien being. Its scales shimmered with an opalescent sheen, and multiple tendrils framed what she assumed was its face. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, studied her with obvious intelligence. "I am Scout Commander Zexley of the vessel Swift Seeker." The translation matrix rendered the alien's musical language into slightly stilted English. "On behalf of the Xanthari people, I greet you." Juniper stood, straightening her uniform. "I am Captain Juniper Hayes of the Earth Defense Force vessel Stargazer. Welcome to the Sol system." The alien's tendrils moved in what might have been a gesture of acknowledgement. "Your greeting protocols are most courteous, Captain Hayes. There was a slight hesitation. "We come seeking dialogue with your species." Something in the alien's tone made Juniper's practiced first contact smile fade slightly. She'd commanded the Stargazer for 5 years, made first contact with 3 other species. Something here felt different. "We're happy to dialogue," she said carefully. "Though I notice your ship's power systems seem to be experiencing some instability. Do you require assistance?" The alien's scales shifted color, slightly surprised, perhaps. "You are very observant, Captain, and most kind to offer. However, my mission is primarily diplomatic in nature. There are matters my leaders wish to discuss with your government." Juniper exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander David Chen. They'd both read the subtle desperation in the alien's voice. Scout Commander, Juniper said, making a decision, why don't you tell me what's really going on? There was a long pause. The alien's tendrils writhed in what seemed like internal conflict. Finally, Zexley spoke again. Captain Hayes, what I am about to tell you was not part of my mission parameters, but I sense that perhaps humans are different from others we have encountered. Another pause. My ship is not merely a diplomatic vessel. We are scouts for a refugee fleet carrying the last survivors of our civilization. The bridge crew stiffened at this revelation. Juniper leaned forward. Go on. 42 ships carrying 300,000 souls. Our antimatter containment systems are failing. In 19 standard days, if we cannot find help. The alien didn't need to finish the sentence. Juniper felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just first contact. This was a potential humanitarian crisis on an unprecedented scale. Her next words could determine the fate of an entire civilization. Scout Commander, I'll need to contact Earth Command, but I want you to know something. She stood, moving closer to the screen. In our history, we've had our own refugee crises. We've learned, sometimes the hard way, that helping others isn't just the right thing to do, it makes us stronger as a species. The alien's scales shifted to a deeper hue. You would consider helping us without demand for payment or technology exchange. Let me contact my superiors, but yes, we would consider it. That's who we are, she smiled. While I make that call, would you be willing to share your technical data with my science officer? The more we understand the problem, the better we can help. Yes, we would be most grateful. The alien's tendrils moved in what was clearly an expression of relief. Captain Hayes, I must tell you, we have encountered other spacefaring species in our journey. None have offered help freely as you have. Then maybe it's time someone did, Juniper replied. Commander Chen, please contact Earth Command, Priority 1 Communication. Dr. Wei, work with our guests on the technical analysis. She turned back to the screen. Scout Commander, with your permission, I'd like to dispatch a message to your fleet. Let them know they're not alone anymore. As her crew moved to carry out her orders, Juniper watched the alien's expression. In those inhuman features, she saw something universally recognizable: hope. One more thing, she added. Welcome to Earth, Scout Commander. I think this is the beginning of a very interesting relationship. The Xanthari's tendrils moved in what she would later learn was their equivalent of a smile. Outside the viewscreen, Earth's sun shone steadily, its light touching both human and alien vessels equally, a star that might soon guide a lost civilization to sanctuary. The massive engineering bay of the Xanthari flagship Eternal Light hummed with activity. Dr. Rohan Patel stood before the towering antimatter containment chamber, its crystalline structure pulsing with an otherworldly blue glow. Despite 15 years of quantum engineering experience, he felt like a student again, faced with technology centuries beyond Earth's current capabilities. The primary resonance matrix is losing coherence at an exponential rate, explained Chief Engineer Velmer, her scaled form towering over him. Her tendrils moved in complex patterns as she manipulated the holographic diagnostics floating between them. Each time we stabilize one section, the degradation spreads to another. Rohan nodded, his augmented reality implants translating the alien technical readouts into familiar formats, like trying to patch a dam that's cracking everywhere at once. He gestured at the containment field harmonics. But what if we're thinking about this wrong? Instead of fighting the degradation pattern, what if we could guide it? A junior Xanthari engineer, Tixley, moved closer, her scales shifting to a curious amber hue. Guide it. The containment field must remain stable or... Not the whole field, Rohan interrupted, his dark eyes bright with inspiration. Look at the quantum signature. The degradation isn't random, it's following subatomic stress lines. If we could predict that pattern, we could strengthen the critical nodes before they fail, Velmer finished, her tendrils writhing with excitement. Tixley, bring up the fleet-wide containment grid analysis. As they worked, more engineers from both species gathered around them. In the weeks since first contact, the initial barriers of fear and mistrust had given way to professional curiosity and mutual respect. The Xanthari's deep understanding of quantum mechanics complemented human innovation and outside-the-box thinking. Across the ship, similar scenes played out. In the medical bay, Dr. Lyra Jo worked with Xanthari healers, studying the effects of long-term space travel on their unique biology. The hydroponics labs buzzed with activity as botanists from both species discovered surprising compatibilities between Earth and Xanthari plant life. But nowhere was the cooperation more vital than in the fleet's educational center. Jessica Okoro, Earth's leading xenolinguist, sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by Xanthari children. Their scales sparkled with excitement as she showed them images of Earth's oceans. "And these giant creatures, we call them whales," she explained, as the translation matrix rendered her words into musical Xanthari tones. "They sing to each other across thousands of kilometers of ocean. Like our ancient star singers," exclaimed a young Xanthari, her tendrils weaving patterns of joy. "Before the great exodus, they would echo songs between the moons." Jessica smiled, making a note in her tablet. Every conversation revealed new connections, new bridges between their cultures. The children especially seemed eager to embrace these similarities rather than fear the differences. Back in engineering, Rohan's team had made a breakthrough. The holographic display showed a complex web of quantum probability patterns, predicting where the containment field would degrade next. "If we reconfigure the backup generators," Tixley suggested, her scales now a deep blue of concentrated thought, "we could create a rotating defense grid. Not enough to stop the degradation entirely, but enough to buy us time," Velmer finished. "Weeks, perhaps even months instead of days." She turned to Rohan. "Your understanding of quantum mechanics is surprisingly advanced for your species' development level." Rohan grinned. "We may be younger in the stars, but humans are quick learners, especially when motivated by helping others." A soft chime interrupted them, the ship's communication system activating. Commander Nyria's voice filled the engineering bay. "Attention all personnel. The Earth Council has just transmitted their decision regarding our request for sanctuary." Everyone froze. The past week of cooperation would mean nothing if Earth refused to provide long-term refuge for the Xanthari fleet. After extensive deliberation, taking into account the recommendations of the scientific, cultural, and humanitarian committees, there was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. Earth has agreed to offer permanent settlement rights on Mars' northern continent, where terraforming is nearly complete. Additionally, they are opening their industrial and scientific facilities to help us rebuild our containment systems. The engineering bay erupted in celebration. Rohan found himself caught up in a very alien group hug, Xanthari tendrils expressing joy in ways his cultural training hadn't covered. But the emotion behind it needed no translation. "There are conditions," Nyria continued. "Earth has requested technological exchange programs, cultural integration oversight, and cooperative scientific ventures. They believe, as do I, that our peoples can learn much from each other." Tixley's scales had shifted to a color Rohan had never seen before, a shimmering gold that seemed to reflect every light in the room. Is this real?" she asked softly. "After so long running, after so many rejected us." Velmer placed a tendril gently on her junior engineer's shoulder. "It's real. Humanity has proven itself different from the others we encountered. They help not for profit or power, but because they believe it's right." Rohan felt a deep pride in his species at that moment. "We've had our own dark chapters," he admitted. "Times when we turned away those in need, we learned from those mistakes, grew better because of them." The holographic displays still swirled with containment field data, the crisis not yet solved. But now they had time. Time to find solutions, to build trust, to forge something entirely new in the history of both species. "Come on," Rohan said, turning back to the quantum analysis. "Let's make sure these containment fields hold. Mars is beautiful this time of year. Your people should see it at its best." As they returned to work, news spread throughout both fleets. In the educational center, Jessica watched Xanthari children drawing pictures of Earth whales swimming with star singers. In the medical bay, Dr. Joe and her Xanthari colleagues began planning joint research projects. On the Stargazer, Captain Hayes and Scout Commander Zexley discussed the logistics of moving 300,000 refugees to their new home. A new chapter was beginning, not just of survival, but of two species choosing to grow stronger together. As Rohan worked alongside his alien colleagues, he realized they were building more than just stable containment fields. They were building bridges between stars, between cultures, between futures that once seemed impossibly far apart. And somewhere in the void between Earth and Mars, humanity and the Xanthari took their first steps toward a shared destiny. The warning klaxons aboard the Xanthari vessel Ancestral Memory shattered the artificial night. Lieutenant Commander Olivia Blackwood of the Earth Defense Force sprinted through the crystalline corridors alongside Security Chief Raxtel, their footsteps echoing in the emergency-lit passages. Critical failure in Containment Chamber 3, the ship's AI announced in dual languages. Antimatter breach imminent. All personnel evacuate to designated safety zones. How much time? Olivia demanded, her specialized containment suit whirring as she ran. Raxtel's scales had darkened to a deep purple of intense concentration. 4 minutes until total containment loss, if that happens. The antimatter reaction would take out half the fleet, Olivia finished. Not happening on my watch. They burst into the containment facility to find chaos. Warning holograms filled the air with angry red symbols. The massive containment chamber pulsed with dangerous energy, its crystalline structure spiderwebbed with fractures that shouldn't have been possible. Dr. Rohan Patel was already there, working frantically at a control panel. "This isn't normal degradation," he shouted over the alarms. "These patterns are all wrong. The failsafes have been deliberately disabled." Sabotage, Raxtel's tendrils writhed in shock, but who would? A movement in the shadows caught Olivia's eye. There, she launched herself forward, augmented muscles propelling her toward a fleeing figure. The suspect was Xanthari, their scales shifting to match the corridor walls in active camouflage. "Security override," Raxtel commanded. Emergency barriers slammed down, trapping the saboteur. The figure turned, and Olivia found herself facing High Council Representative Mexter, one of the most respected leaders in the refugee fleet. "Step away from the controls," Olivia ordered, her plasma pistol trained on the council member. "You don't understand," Mexter's scales rippled with patterns Olivia's cultural training identified as righteous fury. "I'm saving our people." By destroying our ship, Raxtel moved forward, his security team surrounding the counselor. "By preventing this contamination," Mexter gestured violently. "Look at what's happening. Barely a month since meeting the humans, and already our children adopt their language, their customs. Our engineers embrace their primitive methods. Even our sacred medical techniques are being altered." "Those primitive methods saved my life last week," Raxtel countered. "Human surgical techniques combined with our healing chambers." "Exactly, we're losing ourselves, becoming something else. Better to die pure than live corrupted." The containment chamber's warning tone changed pitch. 2 minutes to critical failure, the AI announced. "Rohan," Olivia called over her shoulder. "Options." "The sabotage is thorough," he replied, fingers flying over holographic controls. "Standard containment protocols are locked out," but his eyes lit up. "Lieutenant Commander, remember that primitive method we discussed?" Olivia grinned despite the situation. The manual override, the one Velmer said, was insanely dangerous. "Sometimes primitive works. Raxtel, I need your security codes." As they worked, Mexter continued his tirade. "Our ancestors would be ashamed, 3,000 years of pure Xanthari culture, and you throw it away for." "Our ancestors were refugees too," a new voice cut through the chaos. Commander Nyria Voss stood in the doorway, her ceremonial band glowing. "Or did you forget the ancient records? When our people fled the first homeworld, other species helped us survive. We didn't lose our culture then, we grew stronger." 1 minute to critical failures. "Now or never," Rohan called. "Olivia, on my mark, you'll have 30 seconds to reach the manual release before radiation levels become lethal." She nodded, checking her suit's shields. "Ready." "Security team, clear the chamber," Raxtel ordered. "Counselor Mexter, you will watch what your actions have wrought." Initiating override sequence, Rohan's voice was steady despite the pressure. 3, 2, 1, mark. Olivia sprinted into the containment chamber. Warning systems screamed about radiation levels, but her focus was absolute. The manual release was a physical lever, deliberately designed to be difficult to reach, a last resort failsafe. Her augmented muscles strained against the mechanism. In her earpiece, Rohan counted down, 20 seconds, 15, radiation approaching critical. With a screech of protesting metal, the lever moved. Emergency coolant flooded the chamber as new containment fields sprang to life. The warning klaxons slowly died. "Containment stabilized," the AI announced. "Radiation levels decreasing." Olivia staggered out of the chamber to find Mexter on his knees, surrounded by security. The counselor's scales had faded to a pale gray of defeat. Take him to detention, Nyria ordered. The full council will decide his fate. She turned to Olivia and Rohan. You have our thanks, both of you, though I suspect this crisis is not over. She was right. Over the next few hours, security teams discovered more sabotage attempts across the fleet. A small but dedicated group of cultural purists had decided that extinction was preferable to change. In the Eternal Lights Command Center, Captain Hayes joined them for an emergency meeting. The holographic displays showed the extent of the conspiracy, nearly 50 Xanthari involved, most in positions of influence. We've secured all critical systems, Raxtel reported, but the damage to trust, that will take longer to repair. Perhaps not, Rohan suggested. Every conspirator we've caught has been confronted by ordinary Xanthari defending their human colleagues. Your people aren't losing their culture, Commander Nyria. They're choosing to enrich it. And we're learning just as much, Olivia added. My team has already incorporated Xanthari strategic principles into our operations. This is a two-way exchange. Nyria's tendrils moved in a pattern of deep thought. When we fled our dying world, I worried our culture would fade away. Instead, I've watched it adapt, grow stronger through contact with humanity. She turned to Captain Hayes. Will this incident affect Earth's offer of sanctuary? Hayes smiled. Earth has had its own struggles with fear of change. What matters is how the majority of your people have embraced cooperation over conflict. That tells us everything we need to know about who you really are. As if to emphasize her words, a group of Xanthari and human children ran past the command center viewport, playing some hybrid game they'd invented. Their laughter needed no translation. We should return to the containment field problems, Rohan suggested. After today's events, our timeline might be shorter than we thought. Nyria nodded, agreed, but first, she turned to Olivia. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, your actions today saved thousands of lives. Would you accept a position as permanent liaison between our engineering teams? It seems primitive methods have their uses. Olivia grinned. I'd be honored, Commander, though maybe we should call them alternative approaches instead. As they moved to leave, Captain Hayes stopped them. One more thing. Earth Command wants to accelerate the Mars settlement program. After today, they believe the sooner we fully integrate our operations, the better. Integration, Mexter had spat the word like a curse. But looking at the mixture of humans and Xanthari working together to secure their future, Nyria saw something different. She saw hope, adaptation, and the kind of strength that only comes from facing change with courage. The stars shone steadily through the viewport, bearing witness to two species choosing to become something greater than the sum of their parts. The storm had broken, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had proven just how strong their bridge between stars had become. 6 months later, Dr. Rohan Patel stood at the observation dome of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching the sunrise over Mars' northern hemisphere. Below, the massive biodomes of New Nalara stretched across the terraformed landscape, a perfect blend of human and Xanthari engineering. The morning light caught the crystalline spires and iridescent panels, creating a display that drew tourists from across the solar system. Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it? Lieutenant Commander Olivia Blackwood joined him at the viewport. 6 months ago, they were a dying refugee fleet. Now look at them. Rohan nodded, watching a group of Xanthari engineers testing their latest atmospheric processor. The device combined Earth's terraforming technology with Xanthari quantum mechanics, accelerating Mars transformation far beyond original projections. The latest estimates suggest Mars will be fully habitable in 5 years instead of 50, he said. Turns out desperation breeds innovation, when you combine that with humanity's drive to explore. You get magic, Olivia finished, grinning. The station's quantum comm system chimed. Dr. Patel, Commander Blackwood, the AI announced. Your presence is requested in the Grand Chamber. The integration ceremony begins in 1 hour. They made their way through Harmony Station's curved corridors, passing humans and Xanthari working side by side. Children from both species played in the recreation areas, their laughter mixing in harmonious chaos. 6 months of coexistence had created its own unique culture. The Grand Chamber was packed with dignitaries from both civilizations. Commander Nyria Voss stood on the central platform alongside UN Secretary-General Miguel Rodriguez, their formal attire reflecting both cultural traditions. Behind them, a massive holographic display showed live feeds from Earth, Mars, and the various orbital facilities where humans and Xanthari now lived and worked together. This ceremony marks more than just the successful integration of our peoples, Nyria began, her scales shimmering with emotion. It represents a truth we both had to learn, that strength comes not from isolation but from connection. Secretary Rodriguez nodded. 6 months ago, humanity faced a choice. We could remain focused solely on our own advancement, or we could extend a hand to those in need. In helping the Xanthari, we helped ourselves grow beyond our limitations. The display shifted to show the achievements of their partnership, the new quantum communications network extending throughout the solar system, the revolutionary medical treatments combining Xanthari healing techniques with human biotechnology, the joint defense fleet incorporating the best of both species engineering. But perhaps our greatest achievement, Narya continued, has been in education. The image changed to show the Interspecies Academy on Phobos. Human and Xanthari students studied together, each learning from the other's perspective. Young Xanthari taught ancient songs of their constellation patterns, while human children shared Earth's myths and legends. Together, they created new stories of their shared future among the stars. We've had our challenges, Rodriguez acknowledged. Change is never easy. In the audience, Rohan noticed former counselor Mexter, now released after rehabilitation. The old Xanthari's scales had taken on a more contemplative hue. Beside him sat others who had initially resisted integration, their attitudes transformed by 6 months of peaceful coexistence. But we persevered, Nyria's tendrils moved in patterns of pride. And in doing so, we discovered something remarkable. Our differences don't divide us, they make us stronger. The ceremony continued with presentations from various joint projects. Dr. Lyra Jo and her Xanthari colleagues unveiled breakthroughs in xenobiology that promised to revolutionize medicine for both species. The Mars terraforming team demonstrated how their combined technology would soon make the red planet as habitable as Earth. Jessica Okoro, now head of the Cultural Exchange Program, presented research showing how the merger of human and Xanthari art, music, and literature had created entirely new forms of expression. The station's walls displayed examples, sculptures that shifted with quantum precision, music that combined human harmonies with Xanthari subsonic resonances. And now, Rodriguez announced, we take the next step forward. The holographic display shifted to show a massive shipyard in Earth orbit. There, under construction, was the Unity, the first vessel designed and built jointly by humans and Xanthari. This ship represents our shared future, Nyria explained. Its quantum fold drives will take us further than either of our species could have gone alone. Its mission, to seek out other civilizations in need to offer the same hand of friendship that was extended to us. Captain Juniper Hayes stepped forward, her new uniform bearing both Earth and Xanthari insignia. As commander of the Unity, I make this pledge: we will carry forward the lesson we've learned. In space, there are no permanent strangers, only friends we haven't met yet. The ceremony concluded with a gesture that moved many to tears. The children of the Interspecies Academy performed a new song, written in both languages, about two peoples who found each other among the stars. Their young voices, human and Xanthari, blended in perfect harmony. Later, at the celebration reception, Rohan found himself standing with Olivia and Tixley, watching Earth rise over the Martian horizon. My grandmother used to tell stories, Tixley said softly, about the ancient days when Xanthari first reached the stars. She said we were explorers once before fear made us turn inward. Her scales shifted to a color of deep contentment. Perhaps we needed to lose everything to remember who we truly are. And we needed a reminder of who we could be, Olivia added. It's easy to talk about human nobility and compassion. Living up to those ideals is harder. Rohan raised his glass, to remembering who we are and discovering who we can become together. As they toasted, a notification chimed on their devices. The Unity's crew assignments had been posted. All three of them had been selected for the first mission of exploration. Well, Olivia grinned, looks like we'll be building more bridges between stars. Through the viewport, Mars glowed red and beautiful, its surface now dotted with the lights of human and Xanthari settlements. Ships moved between Earth and Mars in a constant dance of commerce and cooperation. And beyond, the stars beckoned, not as distant, unreachable points of light, but as destinations where two species would now journey together. The sun rose fully over Mars, its light catching the crystalline spires of New Nilera. In that golden moment, it was impossible to tell which structures were human and which were Xanthari. They had become something new, something stronger, a civilization born from compassion, built on trust, and dedicated to proving that the greatest journeys need never be taken alone.